Okay, class, so I welcome you back to another important lecture. And for today's class, we are about to look on toward a very major phenomenon that basically is accomplished by the sense organ that we have in our body, and that was the eye with us. And if you just look on toward the title of this, so this goes by the name adjustment or the focusing. So let us just try to see that what this phenomenon actually is. So simply we say that when the lens would change the shape in case when the light rays from different distances they are focused on the retina of the eye. Like what do I mean by that? And this would also clear your concept of that how come the image would be formed in the eyes. Now you may have noticed in your daily life, like if we are in the dark or if there is no light in our surrounding, so we are not able to see the objects. So the situation that develops in the eye that leads to the formation of an image on the retina would be that there would be some luminous source in your surrounding, and by the luminous source what we mean is that any source that would have this ability to be emitting the light rays. And these light rays, when they hit the surface of the object, so by that these light rays they are reflected. And when they are reflected, so the first thing that they pass through the eye, so this is the conjunctiva with us, and after the conjunctiva, this would pass through this cornea that we have, and then afterward this would pass through the pupil that we have. And then the light rays would ultimately be coming toward the lens, and the lens would try to be focusing these light rays on toward the retina of the object. And in this way, the image would be formed here, and from there, the electrical impulses would go to the brain with the help of the optic nerve. Now you see the situation with the accommodation or the adjustment is that this cup that we have got here, so compared to the eye, this is the nearer object. And this cup that I have made for you, or the mug that I have made, so comparative to the eye, this would be the distant object or the far object we say. So that is why we were saying that when this lens that we have got that basically is connected to the ciliary body and the suspensory ligament kind of a thing that we have in the second layer of the eye, which was a choroid with us. So when this lens shape would change, when the light rays from the distant object, and by the distant object, what I mean is that when they come from the nearer object or when they come from the far away object, so when this lens would change shape and would try to be focusing these light rays on toward the retina of the eye, so this is referred to as accommodation or the adjustment, we say. So if I were to be taking you toward this at how come the image is getting formed on the eye, so first the luminous source would produce a light rays, and these light rays they would hit this object, and from here it would be reflected from the surface of the object, and then it would pass through the conjunctiva, then through the pupil of the eye, and then I said through the convex lens from here, and then they would hit on toward the retina, we say. So in term of understanding the phenomenon of the accommodation or the adjustment, so I would take you to be understanding that what exists here in case of the eye. So this part of the eye that I'm highlighting, so I have made it above. So if you were to look here, this is just the second layer or the middle layer of the eye I have drawn for you, and this is termed as the choroid. And if you remember in the choroid at front we had the iris muscles, and at the back, we have the ciliary body or the ciliary muscles. And these ciliary muscles, with the help of these ligaments, to what we are referring to them as a suspensory ligament. So this is connected to the convex lens. So this means that if in case I had to be elongating the lens or if I have to be slackening the lens, then what should happen that these suspensory ligaments that I have with me, so they have to be pulled. And when they would be pulled, so as a result of that, this convex lens, it would become thin, elongated, or slackened. And on the other way around, if I were required to be making this lens to be becoming more thick or more convex, then in that case, the suspensory ligaments that we have here, so they must relax. So here we must know that how come we be pulling these suspensory ligaments to be making the lens convex, and how come we be releasing the tension on the convex lens by the suspensory ligament. So here is a little technicality, and the technicality is that if I have to be pulling the suspensory ligaments, then the ciliary body muscles they should be relaxing, and when they would relax, so ultimately these suspensory ligaments they would be pulled, and this convex lens it would become elongated. On the other way around, if I have to make the lens thicker or more convex, then what would happen that these ciliary muscles body they would contract, and when these ciliary muscles would contract, as a result of that, these suspensory ligaments they would loosen up, and when they would loosen up, so as a result of that, the pull on the convex lens would be released, and this convex lens it would become a thicker. So what you have to keep for a moment in your mind is that when I am looking on toward a far away object. So this lens that I have got, it should become elongated, thinner and longer. And when we are looking on toward a nearer object, then this convex lens, it should become thicker and it should become more convex, we say. So here we would see both the scenarios like where we would be looking on toward a far away object or when we would be looking on toward a nearer object. So here if you just look on toward the title, so this goes by the eye accommodation and when we are looking on toward a distant object. So you see that when the object is placed far away, so as a result of that, these ciliary muscles that we have got with us, so they would relax. And when these muscles would be relaxing on the both side, so as a result of that, these suspensory ligaments that we have, they would become tightened and then they would pull on this convex lens. And when these convex lens, they would be pulled, so it would become slacken or the thinner. And then as a result of that, the light would be refracted less. And by the refraction, what we mean is that when we have got the light rays coming and then they change from their original direction. So this is what we term this as a refraction property. And when we are looking on a distant object, so we have to be refracting the light less by the convex lens, and for that purpose, it is becoming thinner or slacken. Now, if you were to be looking on toward this diagram, so you see that this comes as it is in the exam. So whenever you are given the light rays that are coming like this, so this would indicate that they are coming from a distant object. And you see that these light rays, initially by the cornea, they are little bit of getting refracted. And when they pass through the lens, so they get less refracted and ultimately at the end we focus it on toward the retina of the eye. And here you see that when the light rays were coming from the distant object, so we made the lens slacken, thinner and elongated. And this is how we would be able to be looking on toward a distant object. Now, moving onward, the other situation is that what would happen when we would look on toward a nearer object, and by the nearer object, that means that something that is placed near to my eyes. And for that, you just have to keep this in your mind that when I'm looking on a nearer object, so this lens should not become thinner or elongated, but rather than it should become thicker or less convex, we say. So now this is a kind of a thing that we have to see is that here the ciliary muscles that we have got now they would contract, not relax. So when they would contract, so these suspensory ligaments that we have here, so they would loosen up now. And when they would loosen up now, so the tension or the pull on the convex lens would be released, and this lens would become more convex. Okay, so if we were just to look onto these points, so we say that when the object is placed close to us, so the ciliary muscles that we have here, so they contract, and the suspensory ligament that we have, so they loosen up. And when the suspensory ligaments they are loosened up, so that means that they would now have a less pull on this convex lens, and this convex lens becomes more rounded, or we say that this becomes more convex, and the light is refracted more. And in this way, we would be able to see this nearer object that we are looking on. Now, if we were to see the diagrams that come in your exam, so whenever the examiner would give you the light rays that basically go like this, so this means that this is a nearer object. They are initially refracted by the cornea and then they would be refracted now more by the convex lens. And as a result of that, these light rays, they would be focused on toward the retina. So in this way, we would be able to see the nearer object. And this is one of the most frequently asking question if the examiner would give you something out of the eye structure. So I hope you would be clear with the concept of accommodation, adjustment, or the focusing because they are the synonyms of one another.